Well, I understand that to just follow up on Senator Roth's statement, there's risk and there's getting ripped off, and they're different things. And so I'm just wondering if there are any protections that we can require so that we are willing to, I think we're all willing to accept risk. We just don't want to be ripped off. So is there anything that is included in this so that when we pay the money back, and everybody's paying a little bit in this except Wall Street, but that's not the issue per se. What the issue is, how do we protect ourselves? And can we do something to protect ourselves so that if and when this happens in the future, we're not back here doing the same thing over and over again to our teachers and to our school districts and to our kids.
Senator Jackson, I'm going to take that as a rhetorical question because I don't know.
No, actually, I'm wondering, no, it isn't rhetorical, because I'm wondering, CalSTRS is a big player, as is CalPERS. They're both big players in the market. Yep. And I'm wondering if there's anything we can do to protect the taxpayers of this state and the kids of this state so that this doesn't happen again, or if there are some things we can do to heavily discourage it. Not rhetorical, really.
I'll take a little bit of a shot. I mean, I don't think there's any way to completely protect taxpayers against that risk. Both CalPERS and CalSTRS are among the largest investors in the world, and so when they come across situations of where their holdings are affected by problematic corporate practices, I think that they aggressively attempt to pursue them. But I think, to be perfectly candid, the chances that sometime in the future we have another big stock market crash and that it's controversial and that there are a lot of reasons for it like this one, that could well happen in the future. And I think that it's one of the reasons why it's so important, as the Retirement Committee chairs have suggested in this recommendation, that we have a check back in a few years to make sure that the funding plan's on track. I think that in terms of overall the functioning of the stock market and corporate America's practices, I think, to be honest, Washington has a lot more of a say in how that works than we are able to here in Sacramento.
Okay.
Perhaps it was just suggested to me that we have the retirement committees look at this issue, CalPERS. I know we have a PERS committee and all, but I think we have to try to do this. I don't have any confidence, frankly, that what we've seen in Washington is sufficient to protect us in the future. Maybe it is, but I'm not too confident about it. And I just think we have an obligation to do the best we can to try to protect ourselves.
All important, and I wouldn't argue with you one bit. We were gamed and we are paying the price. There are still court cases pending where counties have sued because they are not paying the price for the profligate actions. Colleagues, I'm still hoping we might get out of here by 5:30, and we still have a number of significant issues before us, so I'm going to ask all of us to be as circumspect as possible. Senator Roth. Thank you.
I was going to pass, Mr. Chair. I was just going to make the comment that Wall Street may have been running amok, but my concern is that CalSTRS, the system and its board, couldn't run it all. And my comment to the administration is we need to have a conversation with the legislature to give the system and its board some legs, and the assumptions, the investment assumptions that the board makes need to be looked at more than once every couple of years. The contribution levels need to be looked at more than once every couple of years. We wouldn't do that with our individual savings accounts, and we shouldn't tie CalSTRS hands or our hands or administration's hands with respect to those looks. So I commend the effort, and I'm not in a position to agree to do anything, but I think the legislature ought to work with administration to try to open this system up and make it more flexible and certainly more nimble. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be quiet.
Thank you, Senator Roth. Are we ready to move on to public comment? Again, if you could be shorter than we are, I'd really appreciate it.
I won't comment on that comment, but thank you. Jeff Baca with the California Association of School Business Officials. Needless to say, a lot of conversations this year that led to the proposal that is before you today. Our members support the general framework of the proposal, the architecture of the proposal, the fact that the state has increased its contribution well above its historic high level, the fact that it calls on a shared burden of all of the responsible parties. We did have concerns regarding the impact in the first year, 14-15, and we appreciate recognition by the Senate and Assembly PERS committees of that impact. Our preference, I believe, would be to have a one-time augmentation to cover the cost of that first year rate increase due to the fact that, as Senator Block indicated, many school districts are at the point where they're almost finished with their LCAP and they're beginning to adopt their budgets for 14-15. Long term, we think it's very important that we continue to engage in the conversation about education, the adequacy of education funding. In year 4 of this plan and year 5, school districts are going to be faced with significant contribution rate increases at almost exactly the same time that Prop 30 revenues expire, and we may very well be heading into another recession or in a recession at that time. So we would just like to continue that conversation moving forward about the ability of school districts to pay these rate increases, which we do believe are appropriate.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrea Ball, on behalf of the California School Boards Association. And we, too, thank everybody for working together to address this issue. We are still concerned about the rate increase, especially in the budget year. Boards are scheduling their June meetings to adopt their budgets. They've been working all year to develop these local control accountability plans to very much reach the goals of LCFF, engaging their communities more than ever in developing budgets and plans. And I think this is going to be a real unfortunate and very challenging for them to deal with. So we too would ask you to consider an augmentation to address this rate increase.
Thank you.
Hello, Leilani Aguinaldo-Yi on behalf of the Los Angeles Unified School District. We do believe that the legislative proposal is a step in the right direction, and we appreciate the consideration given for the impacts in our districts for the 2014-15 implementation of the increases in the employer contribution rate. However, we do remain concerned that any increases in our contribution rate in 14-15 will take money off the table that would otherwise go to high-need students in our district. And this is after we've spent the last year meeting with our parents, our students, our labor partners, and other stakeholders in identifying the best ways to spend the money next year in our districts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members. Pamela Gibbs, representing the Los Angeles County Superintendent of Schools. I just want to align myself with the comments of my colleagues. We, on a practical level, as a county office, have to review the LCAPs and the budgets of 80 school districts throughout the county. Our CFO knows how far along they've come. He knows that they're already prepared to adopt their budgets and are moving in that direction. So we believe a July 1st implementation date is just too soon. We agree that we want to participate in funding the STR's unfunded liability. We agree with that notion and a shared responsibility, and we want to take that on. We just, on a practical level, know that this is a huge burden at this time, and we urge your support to delay. Thank you.
Liz Guillen with Public Advocates. We really need your expression of the intent that this new bill that school districts now have to pay shouldn't be paid for out of the resources that districts are supposed to use to increase or improve services for low-income students, English learners, and foster youth. Otherwise, the promise of equity in LCFF, which is supposed to contribute to leveling the playing field, is going to go down the drain. And the hope and the work of parents and students and other stakeholders in trying to become part of that local control community will be for naught. It also underscores the importance of increasing the transparency around the resources that are allocated to school districts through LCFF. Thank you.
Thank you.
Teresa Tena with the Community College League of California. I'd like to just certainly align myself with some of the comments that have already been made by speakers in terms of recognizing that it's time to address this unfunded liability. Appreciate the consideration in terms of the reduced contributions for 2014-15. I will say we would support resources to address that in 14-15. Community colleges have undertaken a Student Success Act reform. We are certainly in the beginning of rolling that out and are looking at some augmentations that are going to be providing us with some much needed resources to provide more wraparound services for students and actually provide more slots for students after being forced to turn students away. So ask for consideration in terms of 14-15.
Thank you.
Marta Alvarez on behalf of the San Diego Unified School District. We truthfully thank you to the committee and the staff for considering our concerns for school districts regarding an implementation timeline of 1415. If the school districts are not ready for this, we did not know about this new proposal until 10 days ago, and so it would impact our LCAPs, our budgets for 1415. Our preference would have been to delay this at least until 1516. We do appreciate the Senate and Assembly proposal to at least decrease by at least half that increase in 1415. One last comment is regarding the LCFF. It's really important for the staff and Senate and Assembly to consider, and even for the governor, to consider the impact these increased rates would have on our LCFF initiatives. We have 8 state priorities we have to fulfill as part of LCFF, and we encourage the committee and staff to look into any funding increases in the future as part of the adequacy. Thanks.
Thank you.
Anna Namack, Association of California School Administrators. We support the PERS committee recommendation. We think there does need to be an augmentation for 14-15 budget year, and we'd like to see a 5-year review to see how well we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Patrick McCallum, Peralta, San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego Community College District. If you take all the new Prop 30 revenues designated for K-14, and you take the PERS and this proposed STRS increase, all those Prop 30 revenues will go to pay that. So the reality is what we're voting on today is all those priorities that you wish and desire that are here. In year 3, 4, and 5, there's going to be a squeeze. So this ship is moving, just sort of on within it, but to the extent that you can front load that contribution to identify $375 million that Senator Block has come up with, convince our friends and the governor not to veto that, that's going to help. If you can't do that, then taking the PERS recommendations you ought to do. So front loading really kind of helps us so we don't get those 19% employer increases in the future and not do those priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any final comments?
No, just that this is a significant proposal. The schools, we've been hearing all of the comments since the proposal hit the street. We're listening. We're looking at taking a hard look at what your committees adopted yesterday. But I would just remind the committee that the governor's budget includes $10 billion in new resources, and our first-year proposal, first-year phase-in is $347 million.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Mr.
I would add one other thing, that actually the biggest ramp up for school districts happens as Prop 30 is rolling off. And this obligation will be present for many, many years after Prop 30 is gone. But the school districts begin to approach their terminal rates, the rates that they're headed toward around, it ramps up gradually, takes up some additional resources that are being provided to districts, but it reaches $3 billion in 18-19, which is the first year that we start to lose some of those personal income tax revenues from Prop 30. So it's really the bulk of those obligations are going to be after Prop 30 rolls off.
Thank you. That's a segue for a conversation we're not going to have today, but I look forward to it. So we have a motion by Senator Block, which would accept the Senate proposal. Call the roll, please.
Leno?
Aye.
Nielsen?
Aye.
Anderson? Bell?
Aye.
Berryhill? Block?
Aye.
Corbett? Aye. Hancock? Aye. Jackson?
Aye.
Liu? Mitchell?
Aye.
Monning?
Aye.
Morrell? Roth?
Aye.
It's 10-0.
10-0, the measure passes. Colleagues, 25 is a blank page. We're moving on to 26, which is the Bargaining Unit 10 Agreement.
Yes, this is just a proposal to ratify a recent agreement with Bargaining Unit 10, just do so in the budget as opposed to a different vehicle.
Very good. We have a motion by Senator Bell to approve the administration's proposal. No comments, questions, no public comment. Call the roll, please.
Leno?
Aye.
Nielsen?
Aye.
Anderson? Bell?
Aye.
Berryhill? Block? Corbett? Hancock? Jackson. Aye. Lou, Mitchell. Aye. Monning. Aye. Morrell, Roth. Aye. Torres, Wyland. It's 10-0.
Chairman, no to aye. I didn't know.
Senator Nielsen, you want to announce it?
I didn't know. I didn't know.
I don't know, so that's 9-1.
Measure passes 9-1. And we will get to page 27. Just one moment, please.
I know, I'm getting a little sore.
Colleagues, before we take up our last two pages, 27 and 28, we need to return to page 4. It's just been brought to my attention that the cap and trade expenditure plan for transportation, which failed, the Senate proposal failed, without yet another vote, which I'm going to recommend that we take, the governor's plan will appear in our budget. So I'm suggesting we should consider a motion that, given that our Senate proposal failed, unless it is our desire to have the governor's proposal in our budget, that we need a motion to reject it, and then we can move forward. So there's a motion by Senator Bell to do just that. And of course, this is an issue that's going to conference. But if we don't take this motion, the governor's proposal will be in our budget as we go to conference.
So the motion is to reject the governor's proposal without anything else.
It'll just be without any proposal. Yes, because our motion failed. So we'd have a motion by Senator Bell to reject the governor's expenditure plan for transportation as reflected on page 4. Call the roll, please. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Anderson, Bell.
Aye.
Berryhill, Block.
Aye.
Corbett.
Aye.
Hancock.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Lou, Mitchell.
Aye.
Monning.
Aye.
Morrell, Roth.
Aye.
Torres, Wyland. It's 10-0.
The measure passes 10-0. Thank you, colleagues. So we're back to page 27. Just two more to go, and this has to do with our state revenue assumptions. And I'm going to ask Mr. Cisney to present.
So as you know, our office's revenue estimates at the May revision were about $2.5 billion higher across the entire budget window, principally $2.2 billion difference in 14-15, and that was generally about our differences in personal income taxes and specifically capital gains. I'll revisit what I said last year. Revenue estimating for both us and the Department of Finance is an exercise in humility. We will be wrong. The only questions are how much and in what direction. So we tried to take our best shot at what the most likely revenue for the state would be over the next year and beyond. And the nature of the beast, given how taxes work and given our tax system in California, requires making assumptions about capital gains, the stock market, house prices, and lots of other things. So regarding the direction of the stock market, we actually have identical assumptions to what's included in the Department of Finance's economic estimates, projections that are online. And we essentially assume in our forecast that the stock market is flat, declining somewhat, actually, in some parts through the end of 2014 and growing very slowly thereafter. That will not exactly come to pass because, of course, the stock market will do something different. It may be a lot higher, maybe a lot lower, it may be somewhere around what we would assume. And in between now and then, it's going to go up and down. That's just how the stock market works, and that's how revenue estimates have to be developed. The fact that the stock market in our assumptions remains flat, declines somewhat through the end of 2014, that still means that stocks, and for that matter houses, they have a lot higher prices than they did 1 year ago. It means that people throughout our state who are selling stocks and homes right now, they are earning capital gains on those because of the recent appreciation in prices, and that's what our forecast tries to take into account. And it leads to a baseline estimate of capital gains growing and more money coming into the state through the rest of this year and into April 2015. There's no foolproof way to make these estimates. Even if we got the stock estimates exactly right, there's still, as in any statistical modeling, a range of error around them. We have over $100 billion general fund budget. And to put it in perspective, the difference between our two forecasts is a couple of $1 billion in 2014-15. It's not really that large when you consider the range of error that can happen, both higher and lower around an estimate. So with volatility and with the unpredictability of the stock market, those are all of the caveats. We took our best shot. We happen to be higher than finance, but as I say, in the end of the day, we will both be wrong. And we will be wrong one way or another, to some extent or another. And in our Constitution, it's the legislature's job to weigh all of the risks involved and to decide on a revenue estimate. And so that's the choice before you.
Thank you, Mr. Cisney. You are always modest and forthright. But if last year meant anything, you did a pretty good job. Colleagues, any questions? Senator Bell.
Just, reflecting on revenue estimates, I just want to state that the methodologies for revenue estimates and the differences is important to scrutinize. And if any external or other factors are included, we should know about it. So my question would be, have anything other than the typical economic forecasting factors been part of the revenue estimating?
Your question?
Have anything other than the typical economic factors been included when you make your revenue estimating?
I will turn that over to Jay to answer.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand your question, but essentially, yeah, we do use economic forecasts.
You don't just artificially drop them down like...
Oh, no. There were a bunch of other non-economic factors going on.
Somebody calls you up and says, I need more money, increase it.
No.
This is, we used to call this the Mayor Beam revenue estimating process in New York.
No, I mean, I think that the difference...
that raised the estimates.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the budget was balanced.
I think that the difference that Mr. Cisney pointed out, it's really quite small, the difference, but it is really completely related to capital gains. And as everyone is quite familiar with at this point, capital gains are extremely volatile. This year, they're 9.8% of general fund revenues. Just a few years ago, they were 2.8% of general fund revenues.
All right.
Estimating them is extremely difficult, and as Mr. Cisney points out, there's a significant error, risk of error around any estimate of capital gains. And that's really why the administration is just not supportive of higher revenue estimates that are really solely based on this very volatile revenue source of capital gains. Our economic forecast also, does not predict a recession, nor does Mr. Cisney's. But we are 5 years into the current expansion as a nation in California, and that's really the average length of an expansion post-World War II. So while we don't, foresee a recession in our economic forecast. This is something that also weighs on our minds heavily because we are 5 years into that expansion. Also, just to underscore, we think that any of these additional revenues are related to capital gains. That means they're not appropriate for building ongoing programs because they're most likely one-time in nature. And we really are very focused on avoiding the boom and bust cycles that we've all lived through over the past decade. The rainy day fund that you all passed a week ago is a really important foundation to moving the state forward on stable footing, but also I think just not assuming these higher levels of capital gains at this time is also an important factor.
Thank you, Ms. Bosler. We have a motion by Senator Bell. No other? Yes, I'm sorry, Senator Nielsen, of course.
Well, Mr. Cisney, I appreciate your challenges, and particularly so since your boss and I hailed from the same high school. So I'd never fault you very much. But I would only make note by quoting Standard & Poor's, and this is in accord with the caution of the State Department of Finance and the governor. Should the state adopt the LAOs or another higher revenue forecast for the purposes of increasing ongoing spending, it could endanger our current positive rating outlook. I think Standard & Poor's of others have seen us do that too many times. I think 2 years ago it was a $4 billion. I don't think it was your pick, but the legislature based its budget on a $4 billion anticipation that didn't work out. So I would argue, along with finance, for caution here.
That was the same Standard & Poor's couldn't sniff out Bernie Madoff, but that's another story.
Good point,
Mr. Chairman, I suggest maybe Standard & Poor's in their methodology ought to wait until we approve the budget and make their rating. That's what I would suggest.
All right. I'm going to call a hearing on Standard & Poor's. We have a motion. Call the roll, please.
Leno?
Aye.
Nielsen?
No.
Anderson? Bell?
Aye.
Berryhill? Block?
Aye.
Corbett? Aye. Hancock? Aye. Jackson? Aye. Liu? Mitchell? Aye. Monning? Aye. Morrell? Roth?
Aye.
That's 9-1.
Motion passes 9-1. Colleagues, believe it or not, we are on our last item. We've got a motion. Local property tax revenues. It's a bit of a technical matter. I'm going to ask Mr. Cisney and colleague to present.
Good evening. Chaz Alamo with the Legislative Analyst's Office. As you know, the Senate local property tax package incorporates our office's forecast for local property taxes. In 2013-14, our forecast is $218 million above the administration's. In 2014-15, the budget year, it is $440 million above the administration's. I would echo Jason's comments about forecasting uncertainty and note that in the realm of the magnitude we're talking here, $16-17 billion, that the differences between our office's forecast and the administration's are quite small relative to that magnitude, given the complexities with forecasting assessed value growth and some of the other changes that occur year to year with property taxes.
Thank you. Ms. Bosler.
Yes, we do not support the higher revenue forecast. Mainly the excess taxes, which I think is really the bulk of the difference, is extremely difficult to predict. And I think that we're just comfortable with our assumptions, which happen to be lower than the LAOs at this point.
Very good. Any questions from the committee, public comment? We have a motion from Senator Bell to assume the LAO forecast for property tax revenues and allocations. Please call the roll.
Leno?
Aye.
Nielsen?
No.
Anderson? Bell? Aye. Berryhill? Block? Aye. Corbett? Aye. Hancock? Aye. Jackson? Aye. Liu? Mitchell? Aye. Monning? Aye. Morrell? Roth?
Aye.
Torres? Wyland? 9-1.
The motion passes 9-1. Colleagues, before we adjourn, if you could afford Senator Nielsen just a few moments. He's brought an issue to my attention belatedly, so it's not agendized. but I wanted to respect his concern for this issue, and he's going to make just a brief presentation to us.
Mr. Chairman, this is very brief. The first item is payment in lieu of taxes. This was contained in legislation authored by myself and the lead author, Senator Walk, and then myself, co-author, joint author. Historically, the Department of Fish and Game has acquired county properties, and they have been required by law for some 10 years to pay payment in lieu of taxes. That has not, the state of California has not kept faith with our counties, and many have been very seriously affected. This request is for $19 million, and my request is to the committee to put this into the budget so we could at least discuss it in conference committee. So I would move that inclusion.
So we have this issue.
The language is before you now, too, or the item is before you. You don't have the actual language.
Right. So as I had shared with Senator Nielsen, as righteous as an issue as this may be, we don't have any analysis on it. I don't know of any unintended consequences, so I will not be able to support it, but I'm happy to continue to work with you as I get better familiarized with it. But I don't know that I can support this today. Any other comments or thoughts on this? So I'm going to recommend a no vote.
Kind of the wall of debt too, right? Isn't it part of that?
Well, I will note that was discussed in depth in our budget subcommittee, and Senator Bell recommended that we would bring it here to the committee, and hence, with his consent, we proceeded. So thank you for the consideration.
A little unconventional, but I guaranteed Senator Nielsen that we would address this. So he does have a motion. If you can call the roll, please.
Leno?
No.
Nielsen?
Aye.
Anderson? Bell?
Nope.
Berryhill? Block? Corbett? Hancock? Jackson? Lou? Mitchell? Conning? Roth? Torres?
The motion fails 1-6.
Mr. Chairman, one last item, and this did not get discussed in a budget subcommittee. Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry, it did. Yes, it did. I'm not on that subcommittee. I am not the senator from the Nevada County. I was up until about a year ago. I was elected in Nevada County, but it came out on redistricting. This is related to a very massive State Department of Justice conspiracy and fraud securities investigation that the state itself did. The county did not find out about this investigation, nor the identification of individuals to be prosecuted until the day that they were actually charged. This is a $600,000 hit to the County of Nevada's budget that really is very difficult for them to deal with. They do not have the resources in the Public Defender's Office to provide for the public defense, and we've contracted with some private defense counsels, but this is a request simply to put in conference to give us more time to discuss it. I apologize for the lateness.
Thank you, Senator Nielsen. Sometimes we don't have the time that we think we need to address these things. I'm going to ask Finance to share any thoughts they may have. I'm unfamiliar, and I may just not have any memory of it, of non-murder cases that the legislature has backfilled to counties when they've experienced significant costs. And I do remember that there was a murder case in Senator Galgiani's district a few years back. She brought us a policy bill, and I believe we did support her in it because it might have been Merced County. I'm not quite sure. In any case, I don't know if we'd be setting precedent by supporting this and opening a door for all sorts of other expenses the state would be potentially liable for county costs. So again, without any analysis or forewarning of this, I'm not going to be able to support it today. But Ms. Bosler, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, there is an existing item called the homicide trial item for extraordinary costs related to homicide trials. This is I am familiar with this situation, which is slightly different since it is a civil case. There are 2 defendants, to my understanding, that requested services from the public defender's office. It's a pretty significant case. Probably, generally civil cases of this magnitude are not something that occur in small counties such as Nevada County. They have reported to us and to others that they're expecting the discovery to be extraordinary because it's a very data-intensive case related to mortgage fraud and securities fraud. And they're expecting the costs to defend these 2 individuals to be around $600,000. Their entire budget for the public defender in Nevada County is about $1.9 million. So it's clearly a significant hardship for the county. I think that it's not appropriate for the homicide item because it is not a homicide case. It is. We would also be concerned about setting precedent across the board. But we do recognize on the other side that this is a hardship for Nevada County, which is a very small county.
Senator Roth.
Mr. Chair, we did hear this in Budget Subcommittee number 4, and it's my understanding that this issue is under discussion and that there are some procedural or technical mechanisms for resolving this outside of this particular committee and conference. I have to tell you that I was sympathetic to the presentation given the fact that the California Attorney General, it's my understanding, is doing the prosecution. So you have the power, weight, and money of and authority of the California Attorney General descending on your county, conducting a very extensive civil, I use the word prosecution, at great expense, funded by the state, and then you have the county that's expected to provide a defense, probably statutorily or constitutionally obligated to, maybe, without the resources to do so. So I would certainly encourage administration to work with county officials in using whatever budgetary techniques we have in this institution to make this thing right. I'm not necessarily in a position to vote aye on the motion in this committee, but because I don't understand the circumstances of how this would work. But I do think it's a problem that deserves a solution. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Well stated, Senator Roth.
Motion.
Okay.
Call the roll.
Senator Nielsen has made a motion to support Nevada County to the tune of $600,000 to cover their costs in court. Senator Mitchell.
Yes, before we take a vote, I just have a quick question about process, because I appreciate Senator Nielsen bringing it forward and asking for a vote. I don't know that it's fair to any of us to go on record making a no vote on something we have very little information behind. I'm sorry Senator Nielsen's colleagues didn't stay to the end to support him in this, but I just have a question about process, that we're voting on something that hasn't been agendized, that we haven't had the opportunity as a full committee to be briefed on. It was both of these items were apparently heard in subcommittees and were not successful, as were probably a series of other issues that were not heard in subcommittees. So it's a process question, sir.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond?
Just one moment. I think the question was of me. So as Senator Roth points out, the hearings in subcommittee were informational. There were not items presented at that time. So this is admittedly exceptional. And if anything, I'm guilty of trying to be too accommodating to my Republican colleague, but I stand accused. Senator Nielsen.
Mr. Chairman, I thank you for your sympathies. But I have to tell you, this is not uncommon. Around the legislature these days, this kind of thing, if it's legitimately to be criticized, at least this was heard in the budget subcommittee. Day by day by day by day, we deal with amendments and legislation. There will be trailer bills, amendments that are not heard in committee, not the major policy issues. That's standard practice around here, so let's not make this look like something unique. It is not. Unfortunately, it's kind of how the way legislature now does business.
We have a motion. Call the roll, please.
Leno?
No.
Nielsen?
Aye.
Anderson? Bell?
No.
Berryhill? Block? Corbett? Hancock? Jackson, Lou, Mitchell, Monning, Morrell, Roth, Torres, Wyland. That's 1-4.
Motion fails, 1-4. Colleagues, you have been terrific. Thank you for bearing with us all. Ms. Bosler, as always, well-prepared, articulate. Thank you very much, and thanks to our LAO and all of those who participated today, and of course to our public who always make our hearings complete. We are adjourned.